Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Mike Check. We're here tonight. I'm Mike McIntyre,
I'm Mike Jet.
and we're here to debate and get it straight on the Mike Check. This evening, we're going to have, of course, Michael Jets, who's hot and who's not, and we're going to have my top five. We'll end the show with those two segments. First, we're going to have our first segment. We're going to delve into a couple things here. One thing we're going to get into is, uh, hopefully anyway, is the movie Selma. Black History Month is coming up next month, and we're going to segue into Black History Month on some big events in Black history, give our opinions on certain things, and also hopefully you'll call in at 740-792-0764 if you have any thoughts on any of the events that we talk about. We're going to start off this segment though. We'll talk about Selma, and then we'll get into a couple other issues if we can. Again, 740-792-0764 is the number you can reach us at. So let's get right into it. The movie Selma, you guys know, had a big opening. They're already talking about possible Oscar nominations for some of the actings, the show itself, the production. So we're going to start off with Michael Jett's opinion or his critique on the movie. You have seen the movie, Mike?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, give us a little bit of your critique on the movie.
Um, Overall, I think it was a good picture. I kind of liked some of the depth that they went into about the things, the conversations that Dr. King was having with the president behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Um, the conversations that the brothers in the movement were having with each other, even when they were at odds with the younger group that was already functioning in Selma, having to kind of give some headway to Dr. King when they came into town. So I mean, just everybody pretty much knows the worldwide version of the story,
Mm-hmm.
but the movie gave a lot of the behind the scenes conversation. I really like that a lot.
I agree. One of the things I thought about when I was watching the movie, and I always do when I see civil rights era movies with the black community, black people coming together, is the difference of black unity now and how it was then. Almost in a sense of we had black unity then and we have none now. Um, and again, obviously, you can't you never want to paint anything with a broad brush, but I think I could have a very good case to say just that. We used to have unity in the 60s and 70s, and now we have none. What do you say to that?
I agree because, and I think part of the reason is because society has pacified us into believing that the problems that we were fighting for don't exist. They and only thing the problems did is change their complexion. The I mean, as a figure of speaking, but the problems are the same. I mean, they just it just it's a different angle. I mean,
Right.
the discrimination now isn't really that pronounced about voting and things like that.
Right.
It's about distribution of wealth and services.
And I think also, like you said, a different angle. Not only that, the victim has changed, meaning us as black people, we have changed. The victim before was very cut and dry. He was the black man. The victim now is the black man, except his his position or his status has been veiled or camouflaged. Meaning there's so many of us who think we have certain things that we're afraid to lose. And so your problems aren't my problems.
Right.
Back then, every black person had the same exact problem. You can't vote. Now, every black person can vote, but for the government, the people, the power structure, the white man, there's no need to tell us we can't vote because we don't. And it's amazing because a lot of black people tell you, well, I don't vote, it doesn't count. And when you look at a movie like that and you see what they did in order for black people to get a vote, and for somebody black to say they don't vote, obviously they don't understand. So you have to give them, that part of it. You have to excuse the so-called ignorance of it. But when your ancestors have been through what they've been through, for a chance for you to vote and for you to say you don't vote, like you're saying something, you know. What do you think that mentality is about?
I don't know. I think it's just an easier way to avoid the topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's really hard to explain why. You know what I mean? When somebody says I don't vote, I think what they really want to say is I didn't vote this time. I forgot. I don't know how to vote. I don't really know where to vote. I'm ashamed to ask.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to go through the process. I don't really know what to do. I need help. I think that's the real conversation. But instead of going through all that, you can just say, in a masculine tone, yeah, I don't vote.
Yeah, but my vote don't count.
Yeah, that ain't.
And I think if there's anybody out there watching that could give us, something we're missing, we both feel the same way. It's to us, to me, it's ludicrous not to vote if you know anything about our history. It would be ludicrous not to work if you know anything about our history, meaning if you're able to be gainfully employed, because we know it's tough to get gainfully employed if you're black. There are plenty of jobs out there. There are plenty of jobs that somebody is hiring that will not hire you if you're black. That still goes on. But inside of those two paradigms, you have in the middle where we can be gainfully employed. We can vote. We can own property. These are things that we used to could not do at all, and people died for it. And you would think that that those who say I'm not going to vote, somebody would talk to them. I think that's the biggest thing, is that nobody checks anybody like that either. Right. Somebody makes a statement like that, nobody checks them. In the black community, if you do something different than the rest of the community, or you're against the community, or you don't have that type of unity, there's no accountability for that type of behavior. It used to be you were down for a cause, and if you weren't down for a cause, everybody wanted to know why you weren't. A couple other things in the movie that I thought was the biggest thing that I've heard people talked about was the alleged infidelity of Martin Luther King. That was one topic. The next topic was the discussion with Malcolm X and Coretta Scott King. People asked, were those things true? They didn't go. Were they needed for this movie? To get across what went on back then. Were those two things? Those are two of the things that come right up. Let me just say this ahead of time on the alleged infidelity. The one thing I always think about when something like that comes up, and yes, we're talking about it because people have talked about it. That's why I'm bringing it up. I don't know if you heard it, but what's funny about it is that very few people know Martin Luther King because of his preaching, because of his pastoral duties, meaning they don't know what type of a preacher he was in the church on Sundays. They don't know what type of pastor he was for those he pastored when he did have a church. Therefore, what I'm going to say is, what we know him for is his leadership, his courage, his willingness to advocate for us. His infidelity would have nothing to do with that.
Right.
And so to me, that just what it was, the reason we know about it was J. Edgar Hoover's strategy to try to discredit him. And for us to fall for that, especially even this late after his death and into our struggle, to have that put in a movie, I thought it was bad, a bad way to go. I thought it was unnecessary. I don't know what the point was. I don't know if they was going for some type of, make it more, credible, because it was alleged that had happened. What do you think? In your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, that's common with things like this. It was exactly that. They did it to give the movie credibility, because it must be true if they're even saying bad stuff. You know what I mean? And I've seen that. We'll do that. You'll get that from your friends.
Right. Well,
Give me an example. You'll get something from your friends that they'll have, like, there's a bad rumor going on about you.
Okay.
And one of your friends will verify it. So then it must be true.
I see.
You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. So you agree? You agree that you didn't necessarily see a place in that movie for that.
No.
Yeah, and I would love to ask the producer, the director, uh, what the purpose was, because my point is something that delicate, something that personal. There needed to be more behind that. There should have been. That was, that's a very big thing to allege. Uh, Even put in there, that was a possibility. I think without delving into that more. Let's move on to the next thing, and I'll let you go first on that. But Malcolm X, the brief conversation between Coretta Scott King and Malcolm X, and then to go further, the response that they showed that Martin Luther King had to knowing that she met with him. Going into that.
I thought it was really key to give the young people and some of the older people that just, that don't bother to dig into our history, to know the real relationship between the civil rights leaders. There was bad blood, it was obvious.
Yes.
But towards the end of Malcolm's life, you could see that he wasn't the just disrespectful rebel rouser that everybody accused him of being.
Right.
He was, when he in his youth, he was angry.
Mm-hmm.
And he was angry with Dr. King because he felt like anybody with that much power should be fighting a little bit harder to meet his standards.
Right.
And then once he realized the strategy that Dr. King was putting in place, even though he didn't agree, he had to respect it.
Right. And but now what about? Let me say this. Then you had the again and again I know there's what they call director privilege or producer privilege, however you want to say this. But the conversation between Coretta Scott King and Malcolm X at the jail, when he made the comment, you seem not flattered, enamored. When she talked about how Malcolm talked to her and then later to the people, basically alluding to him being jealous.
Yeah.
Because she seemed like she was enamored with, his
almost honored that he would
honored or starstruck. He might be a better orator than you.
Yeah, because it was kind of like, well, no, Martin, he's not like that at all.
Yeah, like he's not that bad. No, these words, you should have heard these words. They were bigger than yours. That's what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that probably, I'm sure with who's hot and who's not. I'm sure it'll come up. But anyway, we digress. But let me just close this out. And I want to close it out because we're coming up to Black History Month, so there's going to be a lot of issues that we're going to hit on civil rights. We're also going to have a segment which we're mulling over now on President Obama being the first black president, and a little bit on what he's done as our president in office. And what I'm thinking about maybe, and I don't know how you feel about this, is maybe inviting 2 or 3 guests.
And I was thinking maybe some callers too, because we want to know how do you feel about President Obama's presidency? Do you like the president? Do you not? Why? You know what I mean? How has it benefited you or hurt you? You know what I mean? How has your status changed over these past 6 years? You know, we like to hear from you, from a lot of people, to see the different points of view. You know what I mean? Both positive and negative. Honest, of course. Just not negative for the sake of hopeless negativism.
Yeah.
But,
which is what we could be good at times.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. And to say on that same line, another thing I think we're going to delve into, or I'd like to delve into, in one of our weeks in February, is to go on to what your point was. It's good for us to know that even our leaders had disagreements, and there was some bad blood amongst them. And still, there was a lot that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and those who were fighting for us at those times in the 60s accomplished, even with that. That brings me to now. I have seen some friction between camps. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Cornel West, Tavis Smiley, Barack Obama. Um, I've seen some different things that's been said. Now, mind you, some of the vitriol or some of the put it this way, some of the um, I'd say explosive words or explosive commentary, basically been coming from Cornel West. Uh, but to me, the lack of unity for, say, Jesse Jackson, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton, the National Action Network, Push Coalition, the NAACP, the lack of unity amongst those groups, because you see when you look back in civil rights, they talk about the what was it, the Southern Leadership Congress, SLC, Southern SCL. I can't get my uh, abbreviations all together, but the Southern Christian Leadership, I think it was, also
SCLC.
yeah, SCL, okay. And then the John Lewis was the head of SNCC, Students or something like that, Students for National Inequality Congress or something. Please, you guys forgive me. I'm gonna have all these things when we have these panels. I have all this stuff written down, but I can't. But anyway, all them groups worked together. They were all included. They all marched together. They all had their heads there. That's why Andrew Young and John Lewis and Abernathy and oh man, all the names that we seen in Selma, who have now gone off to be politicians, judges, and leaders of their own groups and mayors. They all had their own groups. Now, if the NAACP is marching, that's all you see from the NAACP. If the National Network, Action Network, which is Shal Sharpton's group, they're doing something. It's just them.
The same thing. The same. It breaks down to even at a local level. It'll break down like that. That everybody will be united in mind on a cause, but won't show up in body because somebody else is leading the charge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If the NAACP is leading the charge, then there's another group that feels like, well, I'm not just going, you know what I mean? I'm not going to do this just because they're doing it. And I mean, it's silly, but it really keeps us down and it wears us down.
And it's a shame because I believe in the brief amount of times that I've heard Al Sharpton speak, the brief amount of times I've seen him in person, I've had a couple brief conversations with him. I've seen Al Sharpton plenty of times, but never personally. But I've seen they're both very sharp.
You said the same person.
I'm sorry, Al Sharpton and Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton. They're both very sharp, smart. Like, or come on, pettiness. Like, can't you guys get together and sit down and figure out that there's enough TV news on now for y'all all to get a piece of it, even if you're at the same function?
Or at least sit down together and pick a leader because you guys' time is almost up.
Well, exactly right.
Find somebody young that everybody can get behind.
Exactly right. Now, as far as we usually see people with their, they're out in front, they're at the microphone, their oratorical skills, their leadership, their ability to uplift. Some of that can be superficial, but it's not all superficial. Meaning, a lot of times when you stand out there and you're considered the leader, yes, you may sound good, you may talk good, but you better have something to say. And so that usually takes care of that part of being superficial, meaning, yes, you may sound good and yes, you may talk well, but if you didn't bring anything to the table, people aren't going to continue to listen to you.
Right.
And to me, so I seen Jamal Bryant. You seen Reverend Jamal Bryant? Last I know I knew he had a church in North Carolina one time. I don't know if he's still there, but I'll get you hooked up with him. But man, I listened to this guy. I went and seen Jesse Jackson's press conference in D.C. that had to do with some of the situation in Ferguson, and he had about 15 pastors there, and Jesse spoke. Next thing you know, he passed the mic on to Jamal Bryant, and he talked for about 3 to 5 minutes, and I was sitting in the front row, and I heard him talk, and soon I had to look behind me because I thought there was a teleprompter somewhere. He said so much in about 3 to 5 minutes. Just went on and on about the problem, about the facts, about the situations, about what we need to do to get together and about how we need to respond and all these things just right off his rip. And it was in a melodious tone and just, he was going for it,
Right.
And I said, he's got to be reading this. And my point was, he said a whole lot, even while he was sounding like somebody you want to follow. Meaning, looks like that might be the baton that somebody that's going to grab that baton. Good thing about that is I've seen him with both Al Sharpton and both Jesse Jackson, both of them together at different times, different places. Meaning that he's a friend of everyone that's fighting for the cause, and that's what we need. So when they look for a leader, it needs to be somebody that has been willing to be with one group and been with another group, and nobody tries to pull him and say you can't be with that group.
Right.
And that takes integrity. That person that's there says, you shouldn't even be able to think that you can bring something like that to him.
Right.
And I think that's what has happened. So we're moving on time here, and we touched on those subjects. We might as well get on to our our segments. We'll go with the who's hot and who's not. Michael Jett, let's hear it. It's that time.
Well, I'm gonna go with who's not. My who's not has changed. Because I received a bulletin on the Cleveland Cavaliers game against the Portland Trail Blazers. So my who's hot is going to be flaming hot Kyrie Irving, who just dropped a double nickel on the Portland Trail Blazers. You heard me, 55. 55 in the absence of LeBron James to beat a so-called West Coast power like Portland. He carried them on his back. That's who's hot. But I'm gonna give an honorable mention to the people that I was gonna present initially, and both of them have the same name, Jay Sean. My cousin Jay Sean Tate. He's got 2 consecutive starts for the Ohio State Buckeyes basketball team. The last game against Indiana, he scored a career high 20 points with on I think 8 of 9 shooting with 6 rebounds. And he had a thunderous dunk at the end of the game. I was real proud of him, man. And the other Jay Sean is my man. Used to be tailback for the Steubenville Tigers, JV, my championship squad 2010. Jay Sean Hubbard, he's hot. Congratulating him on his OVAC championship in wrestling. So that's what my who's hot is Kyrie Irving, with honorable mention for Jay Sean Tate and Jay Sean Hubbard.
Jay Sean Hubbard's a freshman also.
Jay Sean Hubbard's a
Both
freshman.
of them.
Yeah, and Jay Sean Tate's a freshman for the Buckeyes. Who's not? Roger Goodell in the NFL, and who's ever making the rules that's making Marshawn Lynch stand at the podium for 5 minutes against his will, doing interviews that he doesn't want to do, not talking about anything. I don't know if you saw his last interview. He came and he made an announcement. I'm only here so that I won't get fined. So you can ask me questions if you want to, but I'm going to give you the same answer for every question. So now I'm here, the clock starts. You can fire away if you like to. They ask him questions, and he would answer, I'm only here so I don't get fined. And then somebody else would ask a question, and he would say, I'm only here so I don't get fined. And then Deion Sanders, there's always those guys, legends of the game, that think like, hey man, look, why don't you just do this? And Marshawn would politely away from the mic and say, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Well, let me say this, brother. I don't know what Deion Sanders is going, but if I was Roger Goodell, I'd fine him $500,000. What I need to figure out is, you got about 1,500 players, I presume, in NFL. They all get in front of the microphone and talk. Who are you that you don't have to talk if the NFL says get up there and talk and you get paid millions of dollars? You're only making yourself out there because you won't talk. I'm finding $500,000 every time. So it's the money ain't important, nothing important, but your pride about not wanting to talk, and so you shouldn't have to talk. You could always quit.
But that's not part of his job.
Yes, it is. He promotes the NFL.
Well,
That's why it's in their
NFL
collective bargaining agreement that you come and sit.
Yeah, but that's a prehistoric rule that was written in the infancy of nationalizing the product of the NFL. The NFL doesn't need that anymore.
I don't agree.
Why? I understand that you don't agree. I'm just saying my point. There's no reason to make somebody. You got plenty of stars There's a camera and a microphone, and you can't avoid a camera and a microphone. There's plenty of stars. There's plenty of people to promote the game.
Yeah.
Sherman is the spokesman for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson is the captain of the offense and the spokesperson of the offense. There's plenty of commentary about the Seahawks.
This is true. So he needs to be a zone free agent. He shouldn't be in the players' union, which means he wouldn't be able to play without the players' union because all you do is
I don't know the players' union.
Yes, that's part of the collective bargaining agreement.
I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know the union's stance on the rule because they fighting. He appealed his last fine through the union.
I understand.
So I don't know the union stance, but everybody that I've heard talk about this that wasn't in a leadership position in the NFL or wasn't like Mike Golick, just always like he's just always smoozing with who's ever running anything.
Right, I agree.
I don't understand the point of it. I don't understand the point of it. What do you want him to say and why?
What I want him to say is anything that has to do with the question, even if it's, well, no comment on that because I really don't talk about somebody else and how they play. Well, they said you was with your wife late night. I don't answer no questions except football questions. Well, you ran that ball pretty well. What kind of play was that? Well, we run that play all the time. I did pretty good on that. Appreciate it. Well, you stuck up the joint today, Marshawn. Well, that's your opinion. It's not my opinion. And go on. But to get up there and just say, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Like, that means you can talk. You still at the microphone. You still come so you don't get fined. Fine you then for that. Because the point is, you're not in this to be different than everybody else. Everybody else comes up to the microphone and talks.
You can't have it both ways.
No, I can have it the way I want if I'm paying you.
You can't have it, but not if you. He's fulfilling the obligation as written in the rules. It doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be. It's a legal obligation. So now the rule needs to either be rewritten or abolished.
Yeah, or the commissioner can levy a fine because he don't think he's going to the letter of the law. Meaning, I read the law, and that's not the interpretation I see. Fining. Answer the questions, or you get fined.
But what if the answer? So how
Like,
do you?
Every question can't have the same answer.
So that's
impossible.
How do you distinguish between I don't answer questions about my wife and I don't want to talk to strangers?
Because that's not the contract says to come up and talk to the reporters about your game. The game is what you're coming to respond to.
That's not true.
Either post game or pre game.
Because the reporters aren't bound to ask you questions about the game.
That's true. Nor are you bound to answer those questions.
So that can't be the legislation.
No. My point is the reporters isn't in on collective bargaining. The reporters are able to come in, and they're sports reporters. They're allowed to report on the sports. They can ask what they want to ask. You don't have to answer anything except a football question. Answer. That's it.
Now,
Bill Belichick don't want to do it, but he does it.
Bill Belichick.
There's a lot of other people that don't want to do it.
He does it at the
but they do.
He does it at the Bill Belichick.
And that's all I'm asking from Marshawn Lynch. Why can't you do the bare minimum? What that is a joke. What he's doing.
Yeah. And the answer is I don't want to. It's not necessary for me to do it. Okay. I you're not getting nothing out of it. Why do you keep making me come up here and say?
Because I can.
Right.
Stop working for me if you don't want to do it. You're free to quit.
I don't work for you.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. I work for the same people you work for. I work for the owner of the Seahawks, and so do you.
Who? Commissioner Dane?
Commissioner Dane.
Yes. And your boss, and my boss gave me the right to make rules and discipline you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. But I don't work for you.
Well, that's fine. So I'm going to discipline you, though. You ain't got to do whatever you want to. You're going to pay me what you're going to do. You're going to pay.
And now I done figured out a way to stop you. So now, when I wasn't answering the questions,
yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
You find me.
We'll see what happens.
Now I done figured it out.
Well, he done got on the Super Bowl.
You don't like it, so just take it.
The biggest stage in the world, ain't nobody else playing a whole week of media.
He's not going to be
We'll see. He might not get paid for me. He may not get fined for that one. But in the future for next year, guarantee you something changes. Either the rule or his pocketbook.
The rule needs to be done away with.
That's fine. And my point is,
the team needs to have,
once the rule is done away with, I'm totally fine with it. The rule should leave. I don't necessarily have an opinion on that. My only point is what makes them gentlemen rich is my money, your money, because we watch TV, we pay cable, the TV puts their stuff on, papers, newspapers, the media have made that game something we can all see. The media asks you to come sit down and talk to them. The NFL says we need a rule because we need them to come talk to these reporters. The NFL made that rule because they know that's where their bread is buttered. Mm-hmm. And what do they do with some of their bread and some of their butter? They give it to the players. Mm-hmm. So the players is part of this too. So if you're different than anybody else, bye. Anyway, top 5. We'll get on to that another week.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Go ahead.
It ain't gonna just be bye.
Okay, last word. It ain't
gonna just be bye.
You get last word.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, just do away with the rule because a rule being in place is no good reason for it to stay in place. Or we wouldn't be so happy about the movie Selma.
No doubt. I agree. Top 5, last segment. My top 5 is going to be, it's going to change too. Just because Kyrie Irving going for double nickels. So I'm going to say the top 5 single performances of all time by a basketball player. Number 5 has to be Michael Jordan, 63 on Larry Bird and the Celtics in the playoffs. And I believe somewhere around 1989, 88 somewhere. Might have been a rookie. Might have been after his rookie year. So it might have been right around 86, 87. Anyway, that 63 was a great demonstration of what Michael Jordan was going to end up being, which is the greatest of all time. My number 4 greatest performance on the basketball court has to be Kobe Bryant's 81. Now, I was always thinking that Kobe Bryant's 81 was number 2, but I'm putting down the number 4 because of history and the way things went. We're going to get a different number 3 and a different number 2. Number 3 is going to be Willis Reed coming back out of the locker room, being hurt, had to play to lift the Madison Square Garden up to its feet and pull the New York Knickerbockers to a championship over, I believe, the Phoenix Suns was the team they played in that series to get a championship on. That's number 3. Number 4, basketball performance. Number 2, I mean. The number 2 greatest basketball performance to me has got to be Michael Jordan, 1989, I believe, championship game 3 against Portland when he hit, I believe, 6 threes all in one quarter, and he just couldn't be touched.
Jordan didn't play in the championship in
89. Yeah, 92, 91. I think that was his second or his first. Matter of fact, all you got to know is he did like this. That performance was just unreal. I remember being as a youngster looking at that, and believe it or not, I was one of the few people who wasn't a Michael Jordan fan. I was a Charles Barkley fan, and I even liked Pat Ewing because he was from Georgetown, and they couldn't get nothing because Michael Jordan was getting everything, so I wasn't really a big Michael Jordan fan. But that, I just had to give it to him on that night. And then, of course, the number 1 of all time greatest performance had to be Wilt Chamberlain scoring over 100 points because his history has never been done before, and Wilt Chamberlain was the first most dominant big man ever in the game. He's been replaced by Shaquille O'Neal, but he was the first most unstoppable force. That was my top 5. We'll let Michael Jett comment on that, and then we'll be out after his comments. You got anything to say on those 5?
I just don't know what Willis Reed did other than inspire. I don't think that was such a great performance. I would take him out and put in Jimmy Mack. I seen Jimmy Mack at the Catholic Community Center on stepping across half court, and he had to make 14 3-pointers. He was absolutely on fire. I sat and watched the game. After the game was over, I said, Jimmy, just stand there and let me take your picture because you was absolutely on fire. And he knew he was. He just grabbed the ball and he stuck his chest out and he said, go ahead, Jet, take it.
Just take it. And a tribute to Stuart Scott. He just was cool as the other side of the pillow.
No, he wasn't. It wasn't nothing cool about it.
Well, I'm talking about when he took the picture. When he was on the court, he was
cool and all, but he was on fire. So I just can't see. I don't know what Willis Reed's stats was for that game. I mean, it's all heroic. I would kind of give him maybe a superhero moment. But no,
honorable mention.
I don't even know about honorable mention because there's a lot of people that come back in the game, you know what I mean, after they've been hurt. Now, Paul Pierce did the same thing. You know what I mean? Get carried off the court, limped back on, and he even put in work.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give it to Jimmy Mack.
Well, I got no problem with that. I'll put Jim Mack in there since he was my point guard in high school, and I seen him put 7 in a row, stepping across half court down in Mingo at the community Christian school, step across half court and hit about 7 of them. I never seen 14. I'd have just been, I don't know what I'd have been doing. I'd have been like they were probably on the sideline with Kyrie. I mean, but did you see Klay Thompson?
Yeah.
37 and a quarter. I mean, just what is that?
That's when you just on fire.
And let me tell you something. You got to give it to. Well, you ain't really got to give it that much to him because sometimes he was just coming over as soon as he caught the ball. It didn't matter who was on him or nothing. But I was going to say you got to give it to his team to get the ball to him that many times.
Well, you better.
Yeah.
You better.
Yeah.
If I make 4 in a row, you better get it to me.
Well, my only point is Dale Curry's on the floor.
You mean Dale Curry's his dad?
Steph Curry. I'm sorry. Steph Curry's on the floor. Yeah. So at the point you make 3 in a row, and I'm getting ready to shoot, that's still a good shot because Steph Curry.
Yeah. But it's just not your night. It's my night. It's my night.
Yeah, but we don't know you're going to score 37 when you got 9.
If I make 4 shots in a row, we're going to find out.
I agree with that. That's the mic check for this evening. Again, what we're going to do is let you know next week will be the first week of what we call Black History Month because it is February. We're going to have 4 Wednesdays and we're going to go into some heavy topics. We might have a couple guys with us, a couple women or guys with us at the desk here, have a little group discussion on some of these events. Again, we're going to be talking about Barack Obama. We're going to be bringing up Selma and the civil rights fights that was going on around that time in the 60s and civil rights era. We're also going to be talking about the leadership in the black community as it is now. Could we pull off anything like that? Selma, the bus boycott, any of those things. Is black people together enough to be able to pull off something like that now? We've already commented and said no because we don't have enough unity in the community. But I'm sure there's some people out there who disagree with us. We invite you to call in next week and the rest of the week. Chat in. We're going to put this on Facebook. I'm going to share it starting next week. All of Black History Month. I invite you to share, and me to share on our Facebook page to get it out that we will be on live next Wednesday and all Wednesdays after that. If we do have a time change, we'll let you know ahead of time. But other than that, that's all I have. You have anything, Michael?
Yeah, we also need to have a discussion with our elders, people our parents' age that seem to have a problem with the way direction TV is going, the new series Empire, the series Power. The other, I forget the name of it. It's a BET series with Gabrielle Union.
Mary. No.
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, yes.
They're kind of upset with those. Some people even calling it coonery.
Yes, you seen that?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is this. I don't want to hear complaints about coonery to people who glorify Weezy Jefferson and Thelma Evans. I mean, not Thelma, but the mother. What was the mother's name on Good Times?
Florida
Evans and Fred Sanford. Like, if those people were good enough, I mean, Taraji Henson definitely ain't no Florida Evans. I mean, we can look at her, can't we?
Well, I think the coonery, I thought that was based on that the roles they were playing was stereotypical of what somebody of the other race would call coon or nigga, whatever, meaning they're portraying roles that are beneath them. That's what I thought. It sounds like you're thinking that, or that it might be, you're saying the coonery might be that they don't look.
Well, no, what I'm saying is they're not taking a backseat chauffeur type role. And we've been just fine with that. To me, that's coonery.
Right.
That's coonery. When you
mean like the movie Driving Miss Daisy?
Well,
or the movie
Help. Not to that far.
Or the movie Help.
Even George Jefferson was proud, but he still would shrink in the presence of somebody he felt was a bigger man.
You think?
You remember the guy that owned the building?
No.
What was that man's name?
I just don't even recall Tom Willis all kind of name.
Yeah, Tom. Yeah, because Tom Willis was making less money than him.
Oh, okay.
But
I see what you mean. You mean that he would. Well, I mean, you may be right.
Whittendale, Mr. Whittendale.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
ever seen him around Mr. Whittendale?
No, I can't remember. I mean,
Well, he
if I
didn't.
think
The
about it.
conversations that George Jefferson had with Mr. Whittendale
Was
wasn't
different.
nothing like the ones he was having with Tom.
Right, right. Well, again, like I said, we could talk about that later. But not that I agree. I thought I liked the show. You know, I don't have a problem with the show. I didn't. You know, when I seen somebody say, I never got a chance to read the article, what they were really talking about. When I seen that word coonery used, I just assumed it might have thought that they were saying they were kind of demeaning. I did see a lot of stereotypical type things, but I also felt that, you know, most stereotypes come from something real, and it doesn't cover everything. But there are instances that you see that, so that's where I seen that from. But again, we are out. Michael Jett had the last word on Mike Check this evening. Again, thank you for tuning in. Be ready next month to come in, call in, chat in, and do whatever you want to do. Good night, and see ya.